Execution methods that will chill your bones. What does it mean to die? For most of us, death is an end. Quick, silent, final. But history shows us something much darker. For kings, tyrants, and rulers, death was not just an ending. It was theater. It was warning. It was fear carved into the flesh of anyone who dared disobey. Execution was never just about punishment. It was about control. And when cruelty met creativity, humanity invented ways to make death last. To turn pain into a performance. Tonight, we revisit those inventions. Execution methods so brutal, so inhuman, they will chill your bones. The Brazen Bull. Our journey begins in ancient Greece, in the city of Akragas. There, a metalworker named Perillos presented a gift to the tyrant Phalaris. A statue, shaped like a bull, forged entirely from bronze. But this was no ordinary work of art. The bull was hollow. It had a door on the side large enough to hold a man. And inside, it was built like a coffin. Once the victim was sealed within, a fire was lit beneath. The metal heated, glowing orange, and the person inside roasted alive. But Perillos had added an extra touch. The bull's head contained a series of pipes, designed so that the victim's screams echoed out as a beast's roar. To the crowd, it sounded like the bull itself was bellowing in fury. A death that was both spectacle and mockery. Phalaris, the tyrant, laughed when he saw it. But he also saw an opportunity. To test the invention, he placed its own creator inside. Perillos died in the belly of the monster he had built, his screams turning into the music of cruelty. Linkai, death by 1,000 cuts. In Imperial China, there was a punishment so infamous that its very name became a warning. Linkai, the slow process. Foreigners later called it death by 1,000 cuts. It was reserved for crimes considered unforgivable. High treason, murder of one's own parents, and blasphemy against the state. The condemned was bound to a wooden frame in a busy market. There, before crowds of onlookers, the executioner began with the smallest of blades. The first cuts were almost gentle, shaving pieces of flesh from the arms and chest. Then came deeper slices. Muscle peeled back. Skin stripped away. Piece by piece, the body was carved while the soul still clung on. Some victims endured hundreds of cuts before death. The executioner's skill determined how long they lasted. Wine or opium was sometimes forced upon them, not as kindness, but to keep them conscious for longer. Even worse than the pain was the belief that to die dismembered meant losing peace in the afterlife. Linkai was not just physical torture. It was spiritual annihilation. Scaphism, the boats. Across the Empire of Persia, another punishment was whispered about in terror. It was called the boats, and it turned the victim's body into a feast. The condemned was trapped between two hollowed-out boats, one above, one below, leaving only the head, arms, and feet exposed. Then came the milk and honey. They were force-fed until their stomach could hold no more. Their skin was smeared with the same mixture, making them sweet bait. The boats were set adrift on a stagnant pond or tied up in a marsh. At first, it was simply unbearable heat. But then the insects arrived. Flies and wasps swarmed the honey. Mosquitoes swelled their bodies with blood. Worms laid eggs in the sores that opened. The victim rotted alive, their flesh eaten day after day while their heart still beat. Some survived more than a week. Alive, but less than human, consumed by nature itself. Greek historians recorded the fate of a Persian soldier who suffered under the boats for 17 days. Whether exaggerated or not, the horror of scaphism became legend, a punishment that blurred the line between man and carrion. Breaking on the wheel. In medieval Europe, death was a public show. But few punishments inspired more dread than the wheel. The condemned was stretched upon the ground, a wooden cart wheel resting beneath them. With iron clubs, the executioner smashed their limbs one by one. Bones cracked like branches underfoot. The victim screamed until they had no voice left. Their mangled body was then woven through the spokes of the wheel itself. Hoisted high on a pole, they were left on display, a human warning sign. The French outlaw François Ravaillac, who assassinated King Henry IV, was famously broken on the wheel in 1610. Witnesses said it took hours before he finally died. During that time, the crowd hurled insults and stones at him, as if his suffering wasn't enough. The wheel was not only execution, it was humiliation. A way to strip away humanity, leaving nothing but a grotesque figure turning slowly in the wind. Boiling alive. And sometimes, cruelty came in the simplest form. Boiling alive. Lowering the condemned into a great cauldron, slowly, as steam and fire rose. In the 16th century, under King Henry VIII, it was declared the punishment for poisoners. Chroniclers claimed men and women alike were tied with ropes, lowered into pots of oil or water, and boiled until their flesh sloughed off the bone. The sound of flesh sizzling, the screams echoing off stone walls, and the smell, smoke mixed with cooked meat, drove witnesses to retch. Stories spread across Europe and Asia, each more terrifying than the last. Some claimed molten lead was used. Others swore victims were plunged into tar. The truth may never be known. But whether real or imagined, the idea alone was enough to make people shudder. The twist. But remember this. Not every punishment whispered through the centuries truly happened. One of these stories tonight is a fabrication, a dark legend that took on a life of its own. The Brazen Bull. Lin Kai. Scaphism. The Breaking Wheel. Boiling alive. One of them belongs more to nightmare than to history. Which one do you believe it was? History is filled with cruelty. But it's also filled with myths, tales designed to frighten, to control, and to haunt. The line between truth and terror has always been razor thin. And tonight, you've walked along that line. Careful now. Because history has teeth. And it always bites back. Make sure to subscribe for daily episodes. Leave your guess in the comments. Which do you think the fake was?